Good evening, everyone. So, welcome to the second session, which is research problem identification. So, last session we were discussing about the research philosophy. So, I have told you that research philosophy, the fundamentals, is very important because the methodology and whatever we learn is just a procedure. But why do we do that particular method? That comes from the research philosophy. So last class we were looking at the metaphysics, the epistemology, and the logic, which leads to the paradigm. Paradigm is the lens through which we see the entire world and which gives meaning. So the connection to the paradigm explains the phenomenon. So I was giving an example of the earth is flat and the sun goes around the earth paradigm, which gave rise to the understanding of the day and night and the seasons. But when the paradigm changed, when we understood that sun is in the center, then the way we understand the day and night and the season altogether changes. So therefore, all the phenomena that is in this world, we try to understand using a particular lens, which we call it as a paradigm. Again, if you look at from the positive paradigm where observing is what believing is, we move on to other paradigms which connect to the social setup, social environment or social ecosystem. So when we are part of a particular social ecosystem, the way we understand the phenomenon again changes. So it is not always the same interpretation or same meaning to a particular phenomenon. So there can be different meaning because of the context. So that we call as the post-positivism, interpretivism, constructivism paradigms. And then we were also looking at the critical theory paradigms, where some of the policies or the way we think changes the phenomenon. So we were looking at the communism, feminism, or LGBTQ, within which the meaning of the same phenomenon will change. And finally, we were looking at the last paradigm, pragmatism paradigm, which says that the method should be for the purpose of solving the problem, and we need to choose the right method. So as I told you, that particular foundation of the metaphysics, the epistemology, and the paradigm, we need to keep in mind in every session that we are going to see, so that we can apply them and understand why we are doing or how it has to be done based on the paradigm. So the entire research methodology is guided by the philosophy of research. So how many samples you will take, what is the instrument you will use to collect the data, how you will analyze the data, what you will interpret, how you will look at the findings, all are affected by the philosophy. So today, the research problem identification, it's an important step of the research process. But again, as I told you, I'm going to project the philosophy of research and explain you why we need to be more serious about the research problem identification and change some perspectives that we currently do in identifying the research problem, so that the research that we do, it doesn't go waste. there's some application or purpose for doing the research. So the session today, we'll have my presentation. I will tell you about the new perspective of research problem identification. And then we will do an exercise. I have sent a mail in the morning, I think late yesterday night, saying that we will do an exercise on evaluating your research problem. So we will do that. So for that, what I have done is I have created a Google Classroom. I have sent an invite to everyone. So please join the invite, join the Google Classroom. So there I have posted both these PowerPoints, the last week PowerPoint as well as the current PowerPoint which I am presenting, as well as I have uploaded one checklist. So we will use that checklist to evaluate your research problem after we go through this presentation. So that will be the agenda for today. Okay. So with that, we'll begin the session, the research problem identification. So a problem well stated is a problem half solved. So even in business management, we used to tell well planned is half done. So in any research process, so you take a PhD program or any research project, if it is a funded project or any your own project that you are doing, the time taken for executing or implementing your research is very short. I'll tell you, even in 3 months, you can complete your PhD research process. The procedure for doing a PhD research, just in 3 months, you can complete the data collection, analysis, all those things you can complete it in just 3 months. Then why do we have a 3 years program? And where do we spend the time? It is to learn, understand, and plan. So most of the time goes in designing your research. So here into the research problem identification, what we are trying to do is we are trying to define the problem properly. A problem well stated. Well stated in the sense you precisely mention what is a problem in a very short format or a statement. So in research, we call it as a research problem statement. So if you are able to clearly give a problem statement, then your research is very clear. You will be able to progress fast and you can complete your research successfully. See, many of us are unable to progress into the research. Many are stuck in the research, I'll tell you. That is because problem becomes a problem. The research problem itself is a problem for us. We are unable to find a right problem. So we take one problem, we work on the problem, and middle of it, we find that this problem is not feasible, this problem is not worthy, or this problem somebody else has done it. So likewise, identifying a right problem itself takes a long time. And it becomes an iteration. Some of us come out of that iteration and we are able to progress. Some of us are caught into the iteration and we are unable to come out of that cycle. So we keep on searching for a problem. Never ending, the problem is not clear. We are not able to define it properly. There is no clarity on the problem. What we are trying to solve or what is the research we are going to do, that becomes unclear. So for most of us, the main problem in your research journey is the problem itself. So if you look at the way we are told, how we identify the problem. So you would have attended many research methodology courses from UG, PG, coming to PhD. So at different levels, you would have learned about the research process. And the way we are told to identify the research problem is immediately start reading the literature. Read the literature. From the literature, find the gap. And in every research article, there is one section called as future directions, which says what should the next researcher do. And you are told to read this particular part of the research article to find out your research problem. So I have seen immediately after joining the research program or starting with any research, people get into reading the research article, trying to dig all the articles to find out the problem statement or a problem there. Is that the right method? You can see the first method and the second method. Going through the literature and finding the problem. Or finding the problem and going through the literature. Which is the right method? So what happens is, are we learning to do research? Are we doing research? Are we learning practically? Is it practical? So I'll tell you, if you try to do your research from the literature gap or the future directions, you are not becoming a researcher. You are not becoming a researcher. Rather than you are like a tester or a validator. Why I am saying this is, you think of the PhD program. So I am assuming that most of you are PhD scholars. You have joined this program to learn the research methodology. Maybe there are few people who are yet to join PhD but wants to learn research. So I'm putting it in this context, assuming that you are PhD scholars, you have joined PhD program. See, what is the purpose of promoting research in any academic institution? Why are teachers required to do research? Research is the fuel for any growth of any country or the society. By doing research, we are trying to uplift the life of people. Let it be science research or technology research, coming out with new products, new facilities, new findings. Even social science, the research which we do is going to help to make some policies which will change the way we live. So research is kind of a growth engine for any country. And research happens beyond the academic world. A lot of research happens. So what is happening in academic? We are learning to do research, but actual research will happen beyond the academic institutions. So that is where the purpose of PhD comes. PhD is a license to do research. Many of you would have heard this. Many experts would have told you PhD is just a license to do research. It means that a lot of funded projects are research funding given by the government or corporates. You become eligible to get those funds only if you have a PhD. So by doing PhD, your research doesn't stop there. Many of us do PhD only for securing your teaching position. And once you get PhD, and if you are tenure, then we stop doing research. So your research doesn't stop with acquiring PhD. Your research starts after doing PhD. So if you are getting trained to do research after your PhD, how would the research be? It will be mostly based on what is called as a request for proposal. The industry or the government will have certain problem, and you are given that problem and you have to research on that problem. It means you will have to start based on the problem, not from the literature. Literature, if you start, it is that you are taking any problem and you are working which is not required. So that is what will happen if we start searching for the problem from the literature, the research. If you learn by this method, if you learn, so I'm not saying this is not to be done at PhD level. If you do it by this method, you are not becoming a researcher when you will be able to solve any problem that is given to you. You take any problem which is solvable and you will do it. But when something is given to you, you will not be able to research. So that kind of training is not suitable. So that is where the second method comes in. Learn how to start your research based on the problem that is given. The problem is given to you, you start doing research. So that is what our entire session today is going to deal with. So my emphasis on this presentation is to say that start your research by identifying the problem first. Then what literature is going to do, because we have learned review of literature as part of your research process. Where does it come? See, I will tell you, there are many research models, research process models available. I can quote a lot of popular textbooks of research that we use, like C.R. Kothari, many of you would be referring, or Schindler and Cooper, business research methods by Schindler and Cooper, or business research methods by Zygmunt and all. Or there is another popular book called Research Methods by Uma Shekharan. So you take any of these research methodology books, there will be one research process. See, compare all these research processes. None of the research process tells you to start the research from reading the literature. None of the research process tells you to start the research by reading the literature. It means that we are doing a big mistake. Every research process model starts only by saying, find the problem. What is the problem? Find the problem. Then all the steps, review of literature, hypothesis, instrument development, everything follows. So why I am telling this is how to be practical. How can your research be practical? How do you learn the practice method? So the entire research philosophy, as I told you, the pragmatism paradigm. See, pragmatism paradigm not only gives the world view, but also gives a lot of research methodology principles. pragmatism is also used for research principles like problem identification, and even mixed method comes under the pragmatism paradigm. So even in choosing the right research methodology, we follow the pragmatism principle, or which says practical. What is practical? So again, I am referring to this person, Charles Chandler Peirce. So please note down this name, browse, try to read this person, not only his personality, his background, and also his work. That will give you a lot of insights. So another person who talks about the pragmatism, William James, the famous psychologist, philosopher. So he says pragmatic theory defines truth in terms of the usefulness of the belief. Useful beliefs are true and useless beliefs are false. See, whatever work we are doing, let it have some purpose. Don't do a research for sake of doing research. Let it have some purpose. Usefulness. What is the use of that? That is where the pragmatism comes into picture. So this cartoon will tell us who is a pragmatist and what kind of researchers are we. Just doing something is not going to help. Coming out with a new idea which is useless is not going to serve the purpose of research. So become a pragmatist in doing a research and choosing the right research problem. So practical, pluralistic, provisional, and participatory. See, this is what is going to guide us in finding the research problem. See, practical, when I say usefulness, inquiry should be useful and practical. Pluralistic in the sense, don't be very narrow within your subject area. That is where we come into multidiscipline or interdiscipline, transdiscipline. A lot of things are going to happen. So nowadays, we are moving towards multidisciplinary research. Psychology and marketing becomes consumer behavior, with which the medical or neuroscience is also added, where we come with neuromarketing, computer science and finance, biology and finance, physics and finance. A lot of interdisciplinary connections are being made. So there are a lot of problems available there. Participatory. So useful for many people. And experience, exploration and revisions, iterations. So this is what helps us in properly finding a research problem. That is why if you look at even UGC has been saying this for a very long time. See, some years back, UGC came out with a huge list of research topics and said that PhD scholars in this country has to only do research within this particular areas. That was very restrictive. So people were against it, and UGC removed that list. See, the country or the regulatory authorities, they feel that whatever research that is happening in the academic is not useful for the policymakers. That is not changing the society. That is not changing the policies. That doesn't help any decision maker. So this is one new thing that UGC has come out with, a scheme for transdisciplinary research for India's developing economy. So they have called it as a STRIDE. So which says that socially relevant, local need-based, nationally important, and globally significant research has to happen. So think of the topic you're taking, the research you're doing. Does it have all these characteristics? If these characteristics are there, then your research problem is worthy to proceed. So that is why I'm saying that it's a time to change. We need to change the way we look at the research problem, whatever level we take it. So you may ask, so you said a PhD is a kind of a license. So here I need to only experiment with the research problem. Then why should I need to contribute? That's one question, because if we treat PhD as a kind of a degree, the highest degree, then why contribution is being questioned? Why should I contribute? It's just a learning for me. I'm trying to learn. See, I'll accept that it is learning, but learning happens at a different level in different ways. So if you go back and read the learning theories, what does the learning theory says? At each level, there is a different way of learning. Like what we saw us knowing. Learning also is happening at different levels. Learning by doing. Learning by applying. Learning by producing. See, a surgeon cannot learn by just doing it in the lab on a dead body. If he is learning, that may not help. That may not give him the right learning. Similarly, an agriculture student learning agriculture in the lab, you think of, that is not going to help. Same way, learning research at UG level, learning research at PG level, learning research at PhD level, that has to be understood differently. So at PhD level, you are not learning by just doing it, doing the methodology, going through the methodology. No. You are going to learn by producing the knowledge. You know, research is the process of generating the knowledge, and therefore you need to generate a knowledge and learn. So think in that terms that PhD level, you are learning. It's a license to do research, but you are learning by producing. So identification of the research problem, what is it? See, again, if you look at the definition that is given in textbooks, what does that say? It refers to the sense of awareness of prevalent social problem. It is not you find some gap in the literature and you start doing it. Whether it is currently existing, whether it is prevalent, Many of you will read an article that is published 5 years back and say, in that it is mentioned, then I want to do research. See, please understand even the publication process, how long it takes for publication. When there is a novel idea coming, you start doing a research, you convert that into a paper, and then you submit to journals. Journal takes time. So it means the concept is 7 to 8 years in progress before it gets published. And you are reading it after 5 years or 10 years. And from there, you are identifying the problem and you are saying, okay, this problem is existing, so I will do this research. That doesn't help. And sometimes the problem gap or the future direction is mentioned in a foreign article. The cultural relevance or the country relevance is also not matched. So identification of a research problem is not identifying the problem alone. You are also identifying whether it is a prevailing problem and whether it is a worthy problem. So you need to investigate at that point of time to understand the problem, as it requires to be investigated to understand it. So how does the researcher find these problems? So I'm going to come to that. So, but understand, identification of a research problem relevant and prevalent in the society, and that is worth studying. So how do I find a problem? So when I say it is prevalent or relevant, where do you start? How do you find the problem? Not by reading from the literature or the future direction. Take a look around you. Problems are around you. Problems are around you. So you can identify a problem through observation. So you are part of the society, you are there. So you see people, you see the problem. Or talk to the concerned people. If it is a business problem, talk to managers, talk to practitioners. Many of the researchers do the research in silos or in an isolation without even interviewing or talking to any of the people who are concerned with the problem. How do we know the inside story? What is happening inside the business? How do you know? Without interacting with people, how do you know? Somebody comes and says, there is no employee engagement in the IT industry. Therefore, I want to do a research on employee engagement in IT industry. How did you come to know that there is no engagement? How did you come to know that there is no job satisfaction? How did you come to know that there is a problem? So without connecting with the industry, we assume that there is a problem. That is not true. So the third way of finding out a problem is our own experience. A lot of people joining from the industry, they have seen, they have gone through the problem. They know what is the problem that is there, relevant, prevailing. So experience, your own experience. But again, there is a problem. Individual experience, that is not worthy doing research. I'll come to that. So experience also gives you a lot of research problem and reading. See, reading, I'm saying, reading the current affairs or current information, not the literature. That will come later. See, I did an exercise in our department among the faculties. So I had a workshop among the faculties to identify the research problem. I asked them to come with some 10 newspapers, current newspapers, different newspapers, different days, 10 papers each, every faculty has to come. That's a workshop. They'll have to just go through the newspaper and identify problems and list the problems that is happening currently. That gave a lot of new topics. The exercise, you think of 50 people going through 10 newspapers, and from each newspaper they are picking around 10 to 15 problems. So each faculty can develop around 100 problems, 50 faculties, thousands of problems can emerge out of this single exercise. So we did this exercise. So look around you, observe the problem, talk to the experts, experience yourself, read, keep reading. So that will lead to the exploration of the problem. So you will be able to look at the current problem, relevant problem, prevailing problem. So again, even if somebody is doing all these 3 or 4 processes, again the problem is not seeing the problem. See, as I told you, when I give an exercise, newspaper exercise, you read one particular news clip and you note it down. You say, I have identified a problem. This is a problem. You note it down. But when you read it once again, you will find that it is not a problem. So the problem is not seeing the problem as a problem. So that is what we are going to exercise today, how to identify the problem as a problem. See, even in many research presentations, whenever we are having it in our university, when scholars or others come and present, this is the problem and this is the problem statement. They will narrate something. But question is, what is the problem? So there, again the problem of problem. The problem is not seeing the problem. We are not identifying the problem. So then what is a problem? What is a problem? There should be some kind of a definition for what is a problem. See, a problem is an obstacle which makes it difficult to achieve a desired goal or a gap, desired objective or a purpose. It refers to a situation, condition or an issue that is yet to be resolved, an unresolved condition. In a broad sense, a problem exists when an individual becomes aware of a significant difference between what actually is and what is desired. So the gap. So I will explain it with some illustrations. What is a problem? So many of us will write a problem statement or write a problem, but what is that crisis? What is the difficulty there? What is the dilemma there? What is the ambiguity there? What is the situation? So that is not coming out. Even if you identify a problem, if we analyze the problem, it doesn't look like a problem. It's not a problem at all. It's just a simple happening. It's not a problem. So as I told you, a problem is something where it is different from the desired state. So you want it like this, but it is like this. So it is a problem. It's a crisis. It's a condition. Or it can be a difference between the expectations and the performance. You expect it like this, but actually it is different. So planned versus performance, or expectations versus performance. Or it can be a hindrance or an obstacle. That can be a problem. So whenever we come across certain problems, we need to drill it down. You cannot, at the periphery, accept that it is a problem. If you start doing that, then you'll end up in problem. Your research problem is not worth doing. Researchability is not there. Or even if you do research, finally, when you get a result, the answer is already there. So your research process entirely goes waste. So we need to drill down. So what do? We start asking questions. So this is a kind of an iteration or an exercise that leads to the identification of a research problem. Ask questions. What, who, where, when, how, why. So all those 5 W's and 1 H, I think you all know that. Kipling's critical questions, start asking that. So what happens when you do this is, you come out with an understanding of the problem. So what you see or what you immediately see is just a symptom. My sales are going down. My profit is becoming less. I am losing consumers or customers. That's only a symptom. That's not a problem. Employees are coming late. Employees are not motivated. All these are only symptoms. They are not problem. So once you drill down from the symptoms, then you will come to a kind of a situation where there is a gap from the goal or a standard, desired versus present, or planned versus performance. You find a gap. That is what the problem is. Again, if you drill down, that will lead to the root causes. So actually this happens in industry. They do a lot of drill downs. So that is what the drill down technique is. So drilling down. See, sometimes from a very general problem, you drill down, you will reach a very specific problem. And that is the root cause of all the problems. So once you address that, everything will get corrected. So drilling down becomes very, very important. See, sometimes when scholars come and present a problem, they say it is a problem. That may not be a problem. That is different. But I used to tell them, see, at this level, you need to drill down 1,000 times to reach the right research problem. Drilling down has not happened. It's a good area of doing research. But this is not the problem. You need to identify the problem. That is what my comments will be to any research scholar. Drilling down has not happened. See, whenever a research scholar comes and discusses with me, I never change their topic or their research area. Because as per this request for proposal, you need to know how to work on the problem in your hand. It's not that you will throw this problem and take another problem and work. For the sake of completing your PhD, getting a degree, you throw this problem and search for another problem. Never ending, you go jump from problem to problem, but you don't come out with a real problem, not a relevant problem, and you are unable to start a research. That becomes a problem. So what I used to do is, whatever problem you have identified, you come drill down, find out the real problem within that perspective. So in industry, there are practices. There is something called as a 5 whys. It's called as a root cause analysis. 5 whys. Ask 5 questions 5 times after answering it. 5 who's. Who is that? Who is that? Who is that? And 5 so what? So this is called root cause analysis. This is called perspective analysis. This is called impact analysis. So root cause analysis, if you see the 5 whys or root cause analysis, it is also called as the Pareto analysis or fishbone. So management scholars will know that there is a technique called as a fishbone diagram, where you will have the problem and you will start analyzing what are the causes. So when you ask why questions, this is how you drill down and find out what are the causes. So take an example here. See, if you look at the questions and the answer, where does it lead or what does it lead to next question? From a product problem, after drilling down, we see it has become an HR problem. See, initially you thought it is a product quality problem. But once I drill down, I find that the quality of the product is affected by the individual, the worker. Then it becomes an HR problem. So if I want to have a better product, then I need to address the HR problem. This is how drilling down helps you to find out where is the problem, what is the right problem. So this is not a product problem. Why are tires blowing out at 20,000 miles? Quality problem. The tires are not of good quality. They are bursting. So tire quality is bad. So when you ask why it is getting bursted, it says side walls are too thin. So why are those thickness not even, or it's not in good thickness? They will say the tool which I use to measure the thickness of the tires, that is not proper. The calipers are not properly calibrated, or tolerance is not proper. So why didn't the tool be properly calibrated? Because the technician used a wrong procedure. Why did the technician use a wrong procedure? Because he was not planned properly, trained properly. So a product quality, when I start asking why questions, it leads to the HR problem. Think of it. Any problem that you take, when you drill down, you will reach to some other extent. You might have thought that it is a problem of this area, but once you drill down, it becomes a problem of another area. So why questions? Then comes the who question. So who question not only leads to who is behind this problem, who is affected by the problem, who is concerned about the problem, whose concern it is. So who is creating the problem, and who is managing or who is controlling that problem, and who is concerned about the problem. So everyone comes in. So who, that also matters. Then comes so what. Many of us do not ask this question on our research problem. So what? If you start asking so what question, the real value of your research will come out. The relevance or the value of the research will come out. So when we look at the so what question, what happens is whether this problem is really a crisis. Who is affected? Is it a situation like this? Is it a crisis? And what is lost? What is the loss? What is the effect? What is happening? What is the damage? What is the size of the damage? How much is lost? What is the size of the impact? How many houses or how many people are affected? And the impact, is it very trivial impact or is it a major impact? We don't analyze these things. When we take a problem, you will come out with a very minor problem, trivial problem. Nobody is interested into that.
Sir, can I ask a question, sir?
Yes.
So shall I always start with the root cause analysis first and then go to the perspective analysis, sir? Should that be the sequence?
No. See, the three type of analysis you will have to do, but you can sequence it differently. So all three you will have to do, but after wise only you will go to who. It's not like that. You can parallelly do, or you can change the thing also, because perspective will come. And your wise will lead to the right problem after that. See, this becomes an iteration. Iteration means it's a cycle. You keep doing this until you come out with the researchable problem. See, research itself is a cycle and iteration. Please understand. If you look at the research process itself, till you design your research, it's an iteration process. Iteration means it's a cycle. So what comes first and what you will do next, that can shift and you go on a cycle. So you can start here and do like this, or you can start here and do like this, or you can start here and do like this. It's a cycle, it's an iteration. You do it till you get your results. So that's why there's no sequence. There's no sequence on this. So you can do it either way. So look at how many, what is the kind of an impact? Is it a major impact or a minor impact? It's a very trivial problem or a major problem. So look at the problem. And one more thing, what happens is, if you don't address the so what question, what happens is, many of you end up in a problem which is not a research problem, but it is an operational problem or a different kind of a problem, a managerial problem. You take this example, we call it as a circular reasoning. I'll tell you, many of you, the researchers, have landed up into this kind of problem. They will come out with the problem and they will say, start drilling down. Once they drill down, what they will find out is something is missing. It's not available. They will say fund is not available. Person is not available. Finance is not available. Infrastructure is not available. Supply is not available. Demand is not available. See, that unavailability doesn't become a research problem. This happens mostly in the business research, management scholars, they face this kind of problem. And this kind of problem is coming out from the people who come from the industry into the academic research. Because when they start looking at the problem, they end up in the kind of a question or in a kind of a situation where there is some absence. So this is called as a circular reasoning. So what will happen if you take such a problem and do a research? Finally, you will come out with this one. For example, you take, there's an absence of something. Example, the problem in this community is that there is no hospital. So the objective of the researcher, the need of the research is a hospital. The objective is to create a hospital. Method is to plan for a building and a hospital, and evaluation is if the hospital is there or not. You'll end up only in that. Many research problems end like this. So what happens is when you take such kind of research problems, you end up only with a descriptive problem. Who is it? Or you end up in summarizing something. You end up in. Please mute yourself, the participants. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself. So if you go into this kind of research problem, or what I have named it as an operational problem. This is not a research problem. This is an operational problem. So the final finding of yours is not a decision or a solution, a research solution. It's a kind of an operation. So if you build the hospital, your problem is solved. If you are given finance, your problem is solved. If you are given material, your problem is solved. So that kind of problem is not a research problem. That we call it as a circular reasoning. So end of the research or the outcome or the suggestion that comes out, that is not a kind of a research solution. So again, please dwell on this, because I'm bringing this because a lot of research scholars' proposals, the research problems that you are taking lands into this kind of a problem. What you are trying to do is, you are trying to only summarize. That will not make research. You are only trying to describe. That will not make a research. So research problem requires an investigation. There should be an unknown. You need to search for the answer. No obvious answers, no evident answers. That will not give you the right research problem. Once you know that it is very evident, it's the obvious, you cannot take it as a research problem. So even something that is happening regularly every day, so that is not a research problem. That is a situation, easier situation that is recurring, a routine, a dramatic change that occurs, and after that there is a problem. Symptoms are isolated. You are able to very easily see the symptom and the problem. And also symptoms are consistent. Every time you see this outcome, then it is easy. So these are easier kind of problems that is not worth researching. The harder problems, situation appears new. Changes in the situation are subtle. Symptoms are scattered. Symptoms are ambiguous. That is where your investigation requires. That is where your research requirement comes. So these are some of the things that you need to remember when we are picking up a research problem. And this is what I have put into a checklist. So we are going to exercise that. Okay, few more slides, then we'll move on to the exercise. So coming to the problem, it's not just problems we'll be working on. See, when I said that we are finding a research problem, identifying a research problem, so it is not always a reactive kind of thing. It can be a proactive opportunity. We can research on the opportunity also. What is the future? But again, all these criteria you need to address in a different way. Why this opportunity? What about this opportunity? Who is going to benefit out of this opportunity? What is the size of the opportunity? How much it is going to fetch? So after discussing so many concepts about problem, I am finally saying not only problem, our research can be done on the opportunities also. So don't stop just with the only negative That is problem alone. It can be an opportunity, but do the same exercise, which I told you, do the same exercise even if it is an opportunity. So only then your idea will give worth. Ideas are worth enough. So we are going to evaluate what is the value of your research. See, I have attended many PhD vivas. I have seen one peculiar examiner who comes to the viva as an external examiner or an university nominee. See, he will never ask about the research problem, sample, the concepts, the theory, what did you do? He is not serious about that. He will only ask, if somebody approaches you to buy your research work, how much will you charge your thesis? If somebody wants to buy your research work, how much will you charge? That's the only question he will ask. That means he is trying to find out the value of your research. So you are doing a research, you have a finding, you are having it, it's your own, and somebody wants to buy your research finding because they can use it. How much will you charge? How much will you quote? That will determine what is the worth of the research you have done. So that is the way of evaluating whether your research problem is a worthy research problem. So again, coming back, half the solution to any problem lies in defining it. So you need to define your research problem properly. Okay. So here are some slides which shows the stages. From problem, what do we do? How do we arrive at the exact research question? We make mistake there. We are stuck there. We are confused there. So this is a problem. But how do I research? What do I research on this problem? How do I convert that problem into a research hypothesis? So that is what I'm going to explain quickly. So bringing all those things, observation, discussing with experts, experiencing yourself, and by reading, you identify the problem. You have just identified the problem. Okay. Next stage is you need to understand the problem. So identification doesn't mean that you know everything about the problem. You need to understand the problem. That is where you start with the review of literature. So when do you start a review of literature? Once you understand, identify the problem, you find out which research subject area it is, what keywords to search. You try to do review of literature. And you try to talk to the experts to find out what is that problem. Or you do a field visit, you go to the place directly. Find out what is the problem. So that gives you understanding. Identification, then understanding the problem. So once you understand the problem, the next step is to connect it to a theory. See, if your problem is not connected to a theory, then there is no research going to happen, and there is no academic and industry connect, or the theory and practice connect. That will not happen. See,
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, for the understanding of the problem, you said review of literature, you said talk to experts and field visits, sir. So during this, is it okay for us to talk to the people where we have made the observations? For example, we have observed that students are losing interest in studies, they are having low motivation, grades are falling during online classes. So is it okay to talk to students to understand their experiences? Is it a good approach, sir?
That is what is this one. That is, I have put it as a field visit or visiting an industry. It may be like talking to the people who are affected.
Thank you, sir. Got it.
So the
So,
next step, yes, yes.
So just to add to that, I think that exercise of talking to the students who are like you've assumed that there is a problem, they are having motivation issues, or you're just confirming by talking to the
Not
actual
confirming.
affected.
You need to probe and understand their problem.
Okay.
Understand the problem from their shoes.
Correct.
So we used to say, no, empathize.
Yes.
So it is not trying to find out the solution with the students, are trying to find out the factors or the root causes from the student. Understanding the problem means get into their shoes and try to know what is the problem.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. That stage.
Yes.
Okay. Then you will go back again to the next step about discussing what is the problem, or what is the cause of the problem, or what do they feel, or what do they experience, why that is happening. All those things will come as a part of your research. So this stage is only to fit into them and understand from their perspective. Is it clear?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So
Thank you,
actually,
sir.
so does it actually help us confirm what we are thinking on the right lines when we communicate, when we interact with the people who are affected, like you said, the field experience?
No, that,
when we talk
whether it is whether we are what we are identifying is a problem is relevant, that will come from here itself. Okay. Here, understanding the problem is you yourself start getting into that problem and feel the problem.
Okay.
Only then you know what is the kind of an impact. Is it truly a kind of a loss, or a kind of a grief, or a kind of a problem? So that you will be able to understand what is that problem. So
Yes,
more
sir.
empathetic on that, or getting into the shoes and trying to understand it from the perspective of the people, are trying to be around the problem and see the problem. So that is what this stage is. So once we do that, we are coming back. We are coming back to the desk and trying to connect the problem to the theory. See, I am telling you, every practice, whatever is happening in the industry, or whatever is happening in the society, whatever is happening in everyday life, that is related to some theory. So we will talk about that in the next session about theory development. We will understand what is a theory, how does a theory look like, and how theory is connected to practice. That we'll be looking at. But please understand, we come to university or college, we learn theories, and we go back into the field using those theories. So it means that there is a huge connection between the theory and the practice. Many people will say, what I learn in the college is useless. There is nothing that I learn which I am facing in this world. There's no connection between what I learn and what I do. That is totally wrong, because you are not consciously connected the practice to the theory. There is theory for everything that you do. Only thing is we didn't properly connect it. So try to find out what is the theory that explains this particular problem or the context. You will find really, if there is no theory there, then you are not finding out properly. So this theory connection is where, as a scholar, you are doing. So again, what you are doing, you have understood the problem and you are coming back to the literature, trying to search from the literature the right theory which relates to this problem. Or you discuss with the academicians. So here I am showing an expert. It's not an industry expert, it is rather an academic expert. So you will be able to discuss with them and try to understand the theory that connects with the problem. This is a crucial exercise. Please understand, this is where your backbone of your research lies. Understanding the theory that is connected to the problem, that is where your backbone of your research is. Because your entire research is going to travel on this particular theory only. You will find a theoretical gap, you will fill the gap, you will have the concepts there, you will have the variables there. And those variables you try to measure, you will have a scale, you will have an instrument, you will measure it, and then you will try to do something, you come out with another information. Again, that becomes a theory. So theory, identifying a theory for that particular problem is important. If you are, this is where one more thing happens. That is, you become an expert in this particular area. Unless you are an expert in this area, you will not be able to properly connect it. That is where you are going deep into the domain, going deep into the knowledge, trying to understand what is there in the literature, what is there in the textbook, what does the textbook talks about the particular theory or the problem, and you are able to understand the connection between the theory and practice. That leads to learning, or rather I call it as an expert. You are becoming a subject expert in that particular area. That is the purpose of doing research also. So this third stage, very important, connecting it to a theory. Only if you are able to connect it to a theory, then you will be able to proceed. If you are not able to connect with the theory, you have not drilled down properly, you have not explored the theories properly, you will not be able to proceed into your research. Because you will not know what is the gap, what is the variable, what is the concept, you will never know. Here also I have seen a lot of scholars, they are stuck here because they are not able to find out the right theory. See, there may be a lot of theories there, then it becomes a comparison of theory or critical evaluation of the theory and gap in the theory. So theoretical gap, theory gap. So what is the gap in the theory? So all those things comes out of this exercise. So please understand, this is a very important exercise in research. This is where you spend a lot of time doing review of literature. So now you will understand when to do review of literature, what kind of depth of literature review you are going to do. That is coming here. So you are doing a literature review here. That is the first level to understand the problem. Here you are not looking at the theories, concepts and things like that. You are only understanding the problem. So what you search, what you read at this level is different from what you search and what you read at this level. And what is the outcome of your literature at this level is totally different. I will tell you, review of literature you are doing throughout your research. From the beginning to the end, you are keep doing the review of literature. Therefore, at each stage, your review of literature process is different. Please understand this. Many people are asking how many literature should I do? 50 literature, 60 literature. All these objective questions, that is totally wrong. After understanding the philosophy of research, if you are going to ask me, our next session, we are going to learn about review of literature and the philosophy connecting to it. After that session, if you are going to ask me, how many literature should I do? As a scholar or as a researcher or in any context, if you are asking me, then I am going to get irritated. Please understand. See, that is what is the key of this particular session. So I told you I'm going to give a different perspective. So this is what review of literature, you are going to do it entire every point of your PhD process or your research process, you are going to do it, but in a different way at different levels. And at this stage, it is the more deeper level. At the theory, very specific area, you are going to go deep into it. That is this level.
Sir, can I?
Yeah.
Sir, where do we add statement of problem, sir?
At the end of this particular level only. Understanding, after your research understanding, after connecting with the theory, then you can put it in the statement actually comes for the what you call a documentation purpose. Okay. If it is only for me, I will not put it anywhere. It is there in my mind. As a research problem, it is very clear. But when do I put it into a statement? When I need to present it. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So, yeah.
So after finding the theory gap, then researcher is going to develop a theory.
Your entire research process is developing a theory only. So
Okay.
I used to tell research is a theory to theory. Okay, from the theory, you are going to end with the theory. You begin with the theory, you end with the theory. That is the research process. Okay, so you begin with this theory, and finally you end with a modified theory or an updated theory or an evaluated theory. That is what your research process entirely you are going to do. So this particular slide, this illustration is to tell you what is the gap. What is the gap between theory and practice? Thereby you will be able to understand the research gap. So just to illustrate it, I have put it as an example. What is there in the theory might be slightly different from the practice. And that is where the gap is, where we can do research. Then, once we understand the theory behind it, we understand the problem, understand the theory behind it, the next exercise is questioning. We start asking questions, lot of questions. So your research doesn't start with the problem identification and defining the problem. After identifying the problem, your research can start only based on the question. So it means that on the problem, you are starting to ask questions. And for the question again, you are doing a review of literature to find the answer. You have found the theory. Based on the theory and the problem, you are asking so many questions on the problem. And after listing all the problems, maybe for a research problem, you will ask hundreds of questions, not one or two questions. That is a research question that comes at the end. But initial stage, you are asking hundreds of questions and trying to answer these questions from the literature review, from the experts, from the industry, you are trying to answer. So if the answer to the question is obvious, answer to the question is evident, answer to the question is available, those questions you are leaving it. Finally, you are ending up with a question which has an no answer, unknown. So this is where we are trying to find out what to be investigated. So this is again a huge drilling down. You'll have to spend a lot of time here trying to pose a question, answer the question, pose a question, answer the question, until you come out to a point where there are questions that requires answer. The unknown, find the unknown. And that unknown will help you to frame the research question. This is the research question. This is question on the problem. This is the research problem, research question. Okay, this is the way we drill down from the problem to the research question. So once we drill down to the research question, based on the research question, will direct your research design. That is why many people, what they do is, I told you, last class also, I told a lot of people always try to push themselves into survey research. But why do you want to push into survey research? You need to decide based on what is the question that you are asking. See, if unknown is a factor, see this unknown, we come to an unknown area, and this unknown is a factor or a concept. What impacts? Or we put it as why questions and how questions. In that case, we will be doing what is called as a qualitative research. So here we need to type qualitative research. So this will lead to qualitative research. And when the unknown is the relationship, that is, what is the connection between this particular factor and that particular factor, or this concept and that concept, or how are those relationships? So here unknown is the relationship, or your research question is what, that will lead to what is called as a quantitative research. So based on the unknown, based on the research question only, we end up in the methodology. Where is it gone? It's gone somewhere. So this is a quantitative research, and when there is unknown factor and the unknown relationship, then we go into what is called as a mixed method research. We go into a mixed method research. So from the problem, you frame questions, and the questions will tell you what method of research you are going to do, and the tentative answer to this question is what is called as an hypothesis. So all those things comes under the research process. So find the unknown, frame the research question, and frame the hypothesis, and based on the research question, choose the appropriate methodology, and that is how you will be able to find the answer to the problem. So this is where you need to again be careful and researchable problem. So from the problem to the question, from the problem to the question. So I will show you some examples. Okay, so this is from the book Business Research Methods by Zygmunt. There is a beautiful example given how the problem is being analyzed and converted into an hypothesis. Look at this. I'll take you through two situations, two examples are there. So this is the current situation. 22-year-old neighborhood swimming association seeks research help. What is their problem? Which is only a symptom. Declining membership for 6 years. The membership is declining. That is a symptom only. That's not a problem. Increased attendance at a new water park. So a lot of people are going to the nearby water park. Less frequent usage among the members. So members are also using less. So from the symptoms, you drill down and finally come out to a probable problem. Swim facility is outdated, does not appeal to the younger families. Younger families and children have negative image of the pool. Their old market is aging. Okay, so this is the symptom, and after drilling down, you reach to this problem. Okay, so what do you do research on this? Again, you'll have to move into what is called as a decision statement. What is a decision statement? So who is going to do this, use this research? From their angle, we'll have to start thinking. So if it is a marketing manager, so what things can be done to energize new markets and create a more favorable attitude towards the association? So this problem, this is what the question is. This is what is the question is. So this question is converted into this. So your decision statement, what things can be done to energize new markets and create a more favorable attitude towards association. So your objective is to determine the reasons why families may choose to join or not join a swim club. So that becomes your research objective. So your research question is, how do the type of facilities and pricing relate to family attitude towards a swim facility? So here you are arriving at a research question which will have some tentative answer like this. Child-friendly pool design are positively related to the attitudes towards the facility. So you are trying to relate whether child-friendly food will change the attitude of the facility. Similarly, the flexible pricing policies are positively related to attitude towards the facility. So if the pricing is flexible, whether it will change the attitude. So look at this problem: declining membership, increased attendance at a new water park, less frequent usage among the members. After drilling down, asking so many questions and trying to answer those questions, finally it lands up to prove these things. That is where our research. So once we do research, find out the connection between this will become the answer for this, and that will lead to solve the problem. So your research is not going to solve the problem. Your hypothesis gives an answer to the question, thereby that helps to solve the problem. So you are not directly solving the problem. So similarly, you can go through this situation. Manufacturer of palm-sized computer with wireless internet access believes B2B sales are too low. So distributor complained prices are too high. Business users still use larger computers. This is a kind of a symptom. So the problem is business users do not see advantage of the smaller units. Advantages are not outweighed by the cost. Transition cost may be drawback for B2B customers. So what things can be done to improve competitive positioning of the new product in a B2B market? And that leads to list the actions that may overcome the objections, that is switching cost of B2B customer towards adoption of a new product. And what are the factors that most lead to perception of a high switching cost? Then perceived difficulty in learning how to use the new devices is related to switching cost. Price is positively related to switching cost. Knowledge of new product is positively related to switching cost. These are the hypotheses. So we have the variables here: perceived difficulties, switching cost, price, switching cost, knowledge of new product, switching cost. These are the variables which has to be measured. So look at the problem and look at the research. It's totally drilled down and moves to a different level of research. So it is like from abstract level to an empirical level, from a concept level to a variable level, an unmeasurable level to a measurable level. That is where your research can happen. Otherwise, research cannot happen. You cannot do a research. So we need to drill down to this level. Okay. So with this, I will stop the presentation.